Yo yo, I'm Bessey, and today I'm going to break down my newest tune, Fed Up, which is out on Terminal Underground, Metroid's label. This is a tune if you've ever heard of it, and we'll break it down. Oh, you got me so fed up, I'm just going refund. You got me so fed up, I'm just going refund. You got me so fed up, I'm just going refund. So, first thing I'll break down is obviously the drums. This is what the drums sound like. As you can tell, very simple, not many layers either. I'll break it down fully. So this is the kick. It's a mix of two kicks, but I sampled it from another track of mine. Processing wise, I've got FabFilter Saturn. I boosted up the low end a little bit, just because I wanted it to have that thickness. So without any of this processing, and then with it, as you can tell, it just beefs it up. Because there's not much low end in this, and I wanted it to be thick and juicy with the bass line. I've got a preset from the Glue called Drum Kick Outside Punchy. Pretty much use this for every single track. Highly recommend just using that. It's on 100%. Maybe messed around with the threshold, but most of the time I'll just leave it. Basically, I've got 3 claps here. So I've got this one here. More of a wider, high-end type clap. Got that. More mid in that. And then I've got this one, which is a more thick, all-together clap. So all together. So if I just had that one clap with this, adds that top end, a little bit of white noise kind of, and then this bit thickens it out pretty much. For processing, every single clap is basically just an EQ. So for this one here, I boost up the high end a little bit. I have a limiter to turn it up, because I wanted that more. That's where it was struggling with the other claps. Just a small compressor, because without it, just kind of brings it up, but also makes it blend well with the other claps. I've got a small reverb on it as well, and that's pretty much it for the claps. Now, realistically, this sound here, which is just a loop I chopped, yeah, it has so much airiness that it fills out. Because if I didn't have it, and then with it kind of brings out grittiness to it, if you get me. A bit of sidechain, but only on 40%, because I didn't want it fully sidechaining, and just a simple EQ. You'll notice that pretty much for all my drums. I do just a low roll off, and that's it. I don't like to overly process my drums, because I have a drum bus, and realistically, if it's from a sample pack, it's most likely been processed. And if not, most of the time I'm using drums that I've used in previous tracks that I've made, like a certain hat sound like it the way it does. That's nothing I recommend. If you ever make a track where you like really love the drums, sample them drums. And you don't have to use all them drums, but you can use that kick in a different track, that clap in a different track. Just saves time when I look for samples when you know what kind of track, what kind of samples you like. Then we just got a simple, just top loops, bit of hat. Now if you notice on this, there's no processing. That's because I sampled it from a different track of mine, because I made a certain hat. But yeah, that's pretty much it. And then I got this rim shot I just chopped, so here. Anyway, let's get into the big boy, the bass. So this bass sound is a one shot. I have no clue what sample pack it's from. I just found it and I was like, that sounds really nice. It's a 1 bar bass line pretty much, nothing. Similar to like an odd mob type bass, very similar. Processing, so I've got this EQ here, so if I take it all to processing, you can hear what it sounds like without it, so you know what I'm going to be doing. So yeah, so I have this EQ, boosting up the low end, because there's not loads of low end in this, but it works. Boost up that bit. Have a compressor, which is on 45%, so not all the way. But if you listen to it, it's kind of keeping it controlled. That's what I feel like a compressor does. Use FabFilter Saturn to boost up the mids. So without it, with it. So that kind of makes the track the way it does. It's only on 50%, 57% on the mix, but it's pretty just messing around. There's no secret to mixing your basses. Literally just FabFilter Saturn, the best for it. Just basically click buttons and it probably will work. I've got this Fruity Bloody Overdrive on 30%. Basically an amp, but it's a free plugin, so if you use FL Studio, then go ahead, use it. And then a simple sidechain to the kick, which would sound like this. Now if you notice, I've got band on, so it's actually, so that's without it. So if I have, so it's still going to hit with the kick, so it's kind of like a top in a way for the kick, but it's not going to clash because where it is. And I have a little bass bus, which is just rolling off. This is not directly, it's more like an effects bass bus. I do it kind of weird sometimes with these tracks. So I just roll off the top end, so I add more bass. Have an EQ where I just add more bass, more mids, and then a simple compressor. But I'm compressing it hard because it's more of an effects bus, and I didn't want it to be overly too much, because if I get rid of the compressor, let me put the sidechain back to normal. And then with the compressor, very minimal, but I can hear it, and it would definitely sound better in the mix. So I have this vocal.
So fed up, I might just go and refund. Oh, you got me so fed up, I might just go and refund.
So if you listen to it, you don't really understand what he's saying, because the original vocal sounds like this. So if I was to fully show the original, this is what it sounds like.
Oh, you got me so fed up, I might just go and ghost you and burn out in the whip with chief and gas, we smoke a refund. Knocking on my door, the Grim Reaper wanna take my soul. I'm a living god, I swear the devil just to make them fold. I ain't put no hater, I just...
So I kind of have no clue what's going on that vocal, but somehow I had an idea in my head where I was like, if I chop this, it's gonna sound sick.
So fed up, I might just go and refund. Oh, you got me so fed up, I might just go and refund. Oh, you got...
So it's a simple chop, but that's like the whole song. And the reason why I'd done it for the whole song, because I was going to just have it a little bit, but the reason why I did the whole song, just because I felt like it needed a theme, it needed some sort of flow, as it's being carried by the bass. And I have a bunch of effects, so if you listen to this is the break into the first drop.
So fed up, I might just go and refund. Oh, you got me so fed up, I might just go and refund. Oh, you got me so fed up, I might just go and refund. Oh, you got me so fed up, I might just go and refund. Oh, you got me so fed up, I might just go and refund. Oh, you got me so fed up, I might just go and refund. Oh, you got me so fed up, I might just go and refund. Oh, you got me so fed up, I might just go and refund. Oh, you got me so fed up, I might just go and refund. Oh, you got me so fed up, I might just go and refund. Oh, you got me so fed up, I might just go and refund. Oh, you got me so fed up, I might just go and refund. Oh, you got me so fed up, I might just go and refund. Oh, you got me so fed up, I might just go and refund. Oh, you got me so fed up, I might just go and refund. Oh, you got me so fed up, I might just go and refund. Oh, you got me so fed up, I might just...
And then it drops. So all I've got going on is I've got a delay, which is panning, doing mad stuff. And I've got a second delay, which is doing the exact same thing, panning, but it's quicker. Then I've got primal tap, which kind of like a delay, but it's more short. I think it's better for synths, kind of, but I use it for vocals and the breaks because it has a really cool effect, some of them. And then I've got Endless Smile on 69%, which is a reverb setting, just to beef it up. And that's pretty much it. And then processing wise, I've got micro shift on about 30, no, I think about 20, 25 to 30% on very tight. Just kind of adds a chorus because without it,
So fed up, I might just go and refund. Oh, you... So fed up, I might just go and refund.
as you can tell, that adds insane width and colour to the vocal. If I didn't have that, it would have sounded so dry and not thick. I've got this Head Crusher plugin, which is like a distortion kind of plugin. Got it quite high, but it's because the mix is like only on about 8, 10%. Just adds a bit of distortion. Got an EQ, get rid of this. The resonance, but boost up the highs a bit. DSR.
So fed up, I might just...
As you can see, it's just taking away a little bit of harshness that might come through the mix and ruin it, especially with the hats. I've got a glue compressor, which is just a vocal lead preset, smooth radio stuff, just kind of beefs it up, makes it louder, makes it beefier. I've got soothe, which is just doing this. The tiniest bit, but it's just kind of doing the frequencies that I wouldn't be able to hear myself. A side chain that would just come in on the drop. I've also, this is something I use in pretty much most of my tracks. I have a big reverb clap, like that, because when you transition, it's a really easy way to transition without having to overthink. So if you can't think of a good transition, just chuck that in there. Little secret. Don't all do it, because then I'll have to think of a different way to transition. Alright, and then I guess the main question might be, what is the big wob? What is this? Literally an 808. That's all it is. It's an 808. Because without all this processing, but I thought it sounded really cool. It was like an FM bass, but 808. So I added a bit of width, exact same as the vocal. Took away the low end, compressed it, which is just getting rid of it. It's not really getting rid of anything. It's more controlling, and then this kind of makes the sound. So beef it up. I felt it was satin. Make sure there's no low end. Beef up the mid. So without it, that will come through the mix really well then. And the last EQ, just to make sure it's no low end. And then a side chain plugin. And that is literally it. No thinking. I was looking for basses. That's when I was looking for the one shot. I found that and I went, you know what? I like my big old wobs. I'm going to use that. And it just works really well. So that's pretty much it for that. I have this little sound here, which is from a drum and bass pack, which sounds like this. So as you can tell, that definitely sounds more drum and bass. But pretty much use that. Got this little pattern. Very simple, but just a transition into the next drop, which has this bit. Which this sound is also from, I think, the same pack. And all I did was, well, we can see what the original sound like to see if I changed much. This is what the original sounds like. So as you can tell, I changed it quite a bit. More made it fit as a roller. So if anyone listens to drum bass, there's a term called roller, which is basically a big sound like this, like a foghorn. And it would just kind of put, you know, bass face, bring the bass face out. They can tell it's quite wide as well. This is the exact same processing as the wob bass, because I already got the wob sound so good. I was like, this is going to sound similar. I may have tweaked a little bit, but it's basically the exact same. So I don't have to go over that again, but it's the exact same. And then this is the last build. So I have this like riser, which I also have a reverb rising with it. Builds tension. I've got the snare. Just chopping up the vocal a bit more. Then I've got this crowd noise. So it kind of changes up the first drop. I also have extra hats. A little bit of shaker. just adds a little bit of extra depth. That's what I always recommend when you're making tracks. One thing I've learned is you don't want your first drop to be the best drop. You want it to be as good of a drop, if not better, than the last drop. So if you got a really good first drop and then you try too much in the second drop and it sounds terrible, like worse, then I recommend stripping it back, maybe even go for like something like the first drop, but add a bit more rides, add a bit more hats, add a bit more, just a little bit more energy, so it feels like a last drop. But if you've got a solid idea for the first drop, then pretty much best thing to do is just keep it simple, because it'd probably work. Like a Fisher track, like Take It Off. The first and second drop are kind of similar, but he adds a bit extra hat, an extra bongo kind of loop or something. And then the last drop obviously has that big synth, but it's all the same sort of vibe. It's more just relying on effects and tension. So look at tracks like that, like any big artists like that, look at their sort of build-ups, their drops, because they'll have the same drops, but they just add extra to them. And the build-up is what makes the last drop so big, because people are like waiting for that drop. So that's one thing I learned. That's pretty much the track. I'll actually explain my drum bus quickly. So pretty much for the drum bus, this is what I have. This one thing I'll recommend quickly with drum buses, make sure your drums sound good anyway. So sometimes I start with putting everything in a drum bus because it makes everything a lot like life simpler. But me personally, sometimes I do enjoy doing the drums, then the drum bus, because it makes you realise that I probably don't need a drum bus, I'm just using it for effects. So in the EQ, I've got a little boost just to bring out the mid of the clap. Just brings it out in the mix. I've got Decapitator, which is only on about 20-30%, not loads. Just beefing it up. Because about it. Yep. And then I've got a glue compressor, which is just a preset called Drum Full Parallel. It's on 8%, so it's barely doing anything. But if you listen to it without, with 100% makes it different in this sort of track. I've also got Soothe, which is doing this. And then I've got a limiter just to boost up the drums a little bit to 0.8 dBE. And then Master, what you hear is what it is. But yeah, hopefully that helped. Hopefully that breakdown would do a little something. Yeah, it's quite a simple track. I made it in a few hours. So it just shows that some tracks just don't overthink it.